Picture this. You're strapped into a glass pod on the Singapore Flyer, the world's tallest Ferris wheel, soaring 541 feet into the sky. I mean, that's more than a tenth of a mile up in the air. You rise from the ground to the absolute peak, taking in that spectacular view, and then you smoothly descend back down, repeating this exact pattern as the wheel spins. Life is literally dense with these phenomena that repeat in regular intervals, right? From the rise and fall of ocean tides to the rhythm of the seasons. But here's the real-life problem we want to solve today. How do we track your exact height at any given second on that spinning Ferris wheel? If the wheel stops halfway up, or say 3/4 of the way around, how do we mathematically pinpoint your exact elevation? Well, to track this revolving, repeating motion, we need to map a circle onto a coordinate system. And that is exactly what we're going to conquer right now. By the end of this explainer, you will absolutely understand the fundamental concept of the unit circle, the math formulas behind the sine and cosine functions, and exactly how to apply these tools to solve real-world circular motion problems, like finding your exact height on that Ferris wheel at literally any angle. So let's dive right in. Section 1. Meet the unit circle. Okay, so before we can calculate your height on the Ferris wheel, we have to define the basic geometry of the circle we're moving around. We're going to start with the simplest, most elegant version of circular motion. Meet the unit circle. By definition, a unit circle is simply a circle centered perfectly at the origin of our xy coordinate plane, meaning its center is right at 0, 0. And it has a radius of exactly 1. That's it. It sounds basic, but this circle is the absolute foundation of all trigonometry. Now you might be wondering, why does the unit circle specifically have a radius of 1? Why not 10 or 100? Well, think about the formula for the length of an arc along a circle's edge, which is s equals r times t, where r is the radius and t is the central angle in radians. If our radius r is exactly 1, that formula simplifies to just s equals t. This means the physical length of the arc along the outside of the circle perfectly equals the radian measure of the angle itself. It's mathematically beautiful, and it makes our calculations infinitely easier. Okay, now here is the core rule you need to lock into your memory right now. As we travel around this unit circle, we're hitting different x and y coordinates, right? Well, the cosine function simply outputs our x coordinate, and the sine function simply outputs our y coordinate. That is it. Cosine is x, sine is y. If you remember literally nothing else from these first few minutes, take a mental screenshot of this rule. Section 2. The Pythagorean Identity. Now that we've got those basic x and y coordinates down, let's look at a famous mathematical formula and see how this builds into something way more powerful. You probably remember the standard equation for a circle from geometry, right? X squared plus y squared equals the radius squared. Well, on our unit circle, the radius is 1. And as we just learned, x is cosine and y is sine. So if we substitute those directly into the circle equation, we get the Pythagorean identity. Cosine squared of t plus sine squared of t equals 1. This brilliantly illustrates how directly connected the sine and cosine functions actually are. If you know one of them, you can always find the other. Let's make this concrete with a step-by-step mini example. Let's say you're told the sine of an angle is 3/7 and the angle is located in the second quadrant. How do we find the cosine? Step 1, substitute the known sine value into our identity. So we have cosine squared plus the fraction 3/7 squared equals 1. Step 2, solve for cosine. 3/7 squared is 9/49. Subtract that 9/49 from 1 and you get 40/49. When we take the square root of both sides, we get the square root of 40/7. But wait, we have a positive and a negative root. So step 3, choose the sign based on the quadrant. Our angle is in the second quadrant. That's the top left of our graph. Over there, the x values are negative. And since cosine is our x value, our final answer absolutely must be negative square root of 40/7. Section 3, Mastering Special Angles. Let's transition to the specific angles you're going to encounter most frequently in your math problems and, honestly, out in the real world. Notice the exact values here: 30 degrees, 45 degrees, and 60 degrees. Or in radians, that's pi over 6, pi over 4, and pi over 3. These exact values are derived from cutting special equilateral and right triangles to fit perfectly inside our unit circle. For example, at 45 degrees, the x and y coordinates form a perfect isosceles triangle, which is exactly why both cosine and sine share the exact same value of square root of 2/2. Again, this is essential data you really want to commit to memory. Knowing these values by heart will save you massive amounts of time on your exams. Wait, hold up. This is absolutely crucial. Before we move forward, I want to loudly point out the two biggest, most painful mistakes students consistently make when working with these values. Number 1, simply mixing up x and y. Remember, Cosine is x, sine is y. Say it out loud right now if you have to. Number 2, calculator catastrophe. If you type cosine of 30 into your calculator, it might actually give you the wrong answer if you aren't paying close attention. Why? Because you have to check if your calculator is set to radian mode or degree mode. Your calculator doesn't magically know if you mean 30 degrees or 30 radians unless you tell it. Always, always double check your mode. Section 4. Reference angles explained. So now that we've totally nailed down the first quadrant, it's time to level up the complexity. Let's see what happens when our Ferris wheel travels further around the circle. You might be sitting there thinking, okay, this is great for the first quarter of the circle, but what if my angle is greater than 90 degrees? What if I'm way over in the third quadrant at 225 degrees? How do we find the exact x and y coordinates without memorizing some impossibly massive table of numbers? Well, the answer is reference angles. No matter where you are on the unit circle, you can always relate your position back to a simple, friendly first quadrant angle between 0 and 90 degrees. A reference angle is defined as the acute angle formed by the terminal side of your given angle and the horizontal x-axis. Notice I said horizontal axis. Never, ever use the vertical y-axis to find your reference angle. Because of the perfect symmetry of a circle, the absolute values of the sine and cosine at your big angle will perfectly match the sine and cosine of its tiny reference angle. Let's look at the exact procedural steps to actually solve this. Say we want to find the exact cosine of 150 degrees. Step 1. Find the acute reference angle to the x-axis. 150 degrees is in the second quadrant. The closest horizontal axis is the 180-degree line. So, 180 minus 150 gives us a reference angle of 30 degrees. Step 2. Find the cosine of that reference angle. From our special angles chart, the cosine of 30 degrees is the square root of 3 over 2. Step 3. Apply the correct sign for the quadrant. We're in the second quadrant, top left. X values are negative here. So, the exact cosine of 150 degrees is negative square root of 3 over 2. It really is that straightforward once you get the hang of it. And finally, Section 5, bringing it full circle. Let's move to the final piece of the puzzle and connect all this abstract mathematical theory directly back to the physical boundaries of our Ferris wheel. When we graph sine and cosine functions, we need to know their limits. So, what is the domain? The domain represents the input, our angle. On a Ferris wheel, the wheel can spin endlessly, round and round, forward or backward. You can have an angle of 30 degrees or 3,000 degrees if you just keep spinning. Therefore, the domain is all real numbers. But what about the range? The range is our output, our x and y coordinates, or in the case of the Ferris wheel, our physical position. No matter how many times the wheel spins, you can never go higher than the absolute top of the wheel, and you can never go lower than the absolute bottom. On our unit circle, that means our x and y values are strictly bounded between -1 and +1. So the crucial takeaway is this. We have now mapped out all the tools you need. If a rider snaps a photo at 20 feet, then rotates 3/4 of the way around the circle, what is their exact elevation? Think about it. You'd find their starting angle using sine, add 3/4 of a revolution, which is 270 degrees or 3 pi over 2, find the new reference angle, check the quadrant for the positive or negative sign, and multiply by the wheel's radius. You now have the exact mathematical framework to stop time and calculate the precise location of any circular motion in the universe. Practice these steps, master those special angles, and I will see you in the next lecture where we're going to dive into graphing these periodic waves.